Thanks for joining us for another edition of Issues and Answers. I am Ian Boyne. Today we talk about strata corporations. We have with us Mr. Ainsworth Norton, who is the manager of the Inspectorate of the Commission of Strata Corporations. We thank you for your company. Mr. Norton, good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
You're having a public forum on the 13th of April dealing with issues surrounding strata corporations. Could you tell us about what some of these main issues are that you'll be exploring at this public forum?
Well, over the years, we have recognized that the strata corporations, the kind of problems that they report to us, the kind of dispute issues that come before us, necessitated us providing a forum in which we can impart some kind of knowledge to the general public in relation to those issues. Some of those issues related to how to apply for power of sale. The strata corporations, they have the power to dispose of a property for non-payment of maintenance, relating to issues like breach of covenants, breach of the bylaws rather. You have persons having pets in strata corporations, and
that's not supposed to be.
Well, it can happen. It can.
A particular strata can allow.
They can allow, but if it is that the corporation advises the individual to remove the animal, then they ought to do so.
Yes.
Right? So we have several issues. You have strata corporations not filing their annual returns as required by the Act, the Registration Strata Titles Act, and a number of other maladies that pop up over time. We are trying to address those issues and put it in a space that they are able to comprehend, understand, and then change behavior.
Yes. What are the rights of the individual owners of strata properties vis-a-vis the particular strata corporation or group?
The Act determines that every strata corporation shall be governed by bylaws. So the extent of a person's right and responsibility is governed by what is outlined in the bylaws. Now, every strata corporation, when they are registered at the titles office, or the registrar of titles rather, they are registered with the generic bylaws which are outlined in the Registration Strata Titles Act.
So they are generic?
Generic, the first and the second schedule in the Act. However, the developer at that point in time, having the 100% interest, will then formulate his own set of bylaws and register those on it. Now, when the property has been disposed of to the proprietors may at that point in time choose as well to change, amend, add to those bylaws, and there are specific ways in which they can do that.
Would they have to come to the Commission of Strata Corporations for that?
No, they wouldn't.
They would just deal with their particular...
They just need to have a general meeting held and determine what those changes are, and the percentage votes as outlined by the Act would determine what they can do. So for the first scheduled bylaws which are there, they need up to 70% of the proprietors voting in favor of those changes. For the second scheduled bylaws, it's just a majority decision.
Yeah. Explain to us the role and the functions of the Commission of Strata Corporations, your commission. What are you set up to do? What are your powers? What are your functions?
All right, the commission is I would say, has three main responsibilities. One is to supervise strata corporations, to monitor and to regulate strata corporations. Right? Many persons think, and they would call the commission and ask us to do various things which are not outlined in the Act. The commission is a creature of the Act, as established by Section 3A of the Act itself.
So tell us what you can and can't do.
We do not manage strata properties. So a lot of times persons will be saying that we have issues in our strata corporation. Can the commission come in and tell a man to pay his maintenance? No. The Act provides a prescription for the strata corporation to deal with an individual who is not paying their contribution.
Yes. And the corporation can dispose of the property.
The corporation can. But what the commission does is to facilitate the process of that disposal by issuing the power of sale certificate to the Strata Corporation on application. We ensure that the requisite steps that are outlined in the Act, they are followed to the T.
Yes. But, you know, what if a property owner has problems with his executive at the particular corporation? What kind of recourse does he have? I'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we want to address that. We're looking at the issue of strata properties. A lot of people are going into strata properties, going into gated communities now, so we need to know what are the regulations vis-a-vis those kinds of accommodations. We have with us Mr. Ainsworth Norton, who is the manager of the Inspectorate of the Commission of Strata Corporations. We'll take a break, but we'll be right back.
Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep
eat.
we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica.
Welcome back. The manager of the Inspectorate of the Commission of Strata Corporations, Mr. Ainsworth Norton, is our guest on Issues and Answers. So, Mr. Norton, that issue of an aggrieved property owner in a strata corporation who feels that the executive is not being run properly, or that the decisions of the majority work against him. What recourse does he have? Does the commission say, Jesus was made me a divider of your property, or,
Well, that is a multifaceted question.
Yeah.
Because strata living relates to communal living. And therefore there is democracy in place.
Yes, true.
And
So there's a limitation on the rights that a person would have. I mean, you're not operating in your own space as in the regular accommodation. So that must be understood.
has to be.
Yeah.
Right? So there are limitations as to what you can do.
Yes.
Right? And so where the majority decision is taken, so as it does not contravene the Act or any other laws that are there, then there's nothing that the Commission can do about that. That's a decision that is taken by the corporation legally. Right? However, if it is that the executive committee is doing something that aggrieves a strata property owner, that proprietor can apply to the Commission for a dispute resolution and order.
There is such
a
mechanism.
There is.
That's
so
important.
we hear disputes as well.
You do?
Yes, we do. When they do, we will hear the matter, and at the end of which we have a responsibility to make a determination on the issue.
I see.
So it's distinctly different from mediation, in which you try to get both parties only to an agreement. Mind you, we do try to have them agree. There are times when the Strata Corporation, through the executive, takes a proprietor to the Commission for failure to pay their outstanding maintenance. and they take it to us as a dispute resolution item. In that regard, what we do, we sit with both parties and we try to iron out a payment plan that is acceptable to the Strata Corporation. And if accepted, we draft up that agreement and we hold each party, to that agreement. So if the proprietary needs on the obligation outlined in the agreement, then the Strata Corporation has the right at that point in time to apply for the power of sale certificate. It is not a 1-2 step. They don't necessarily need to do that. They can directly come to the commission and ask for the power of sale application.
If the commission observes that there's a particular strata that is badly run down, whose aesthetics, affronts what is expected, does the corporation have the right to make any kind of intervention? I mean, the same way state agencies would be concerned about beautifying communities and ensuring that communities, live up to certain standards. Would the Commission of Strata Corporations, have something to say about a strata property that is just, badly derelict?
We do, right? Because the commission can ask the proprietors to hold an AGM, because most of the issues that affect strata corporations are people-centered.
Yes.
And therefore, if we can begin to have dialogue with the proprietors, then we can come out at some viable solutions. Now, you have to look at it in the other way as well. If it is that we are going into a strata corporation and the persons don't want the walls painted, then we can't paint it for them.
People don't want it.
So we would initiate dialogue.
I mean, if they're happy in the nastiness, you can't.
We can't take them out of it. Right? But fortunately for our constituents who are the strata corporations, they are not so minded.
They're not.
Right. So we would step in a situation like that, try to get an annual general meeting going or an extraordinary general meeting. If there isn't an executive in place to carry out that particular duty, we can call a meeting for the Strata Corporation and discuss the issues or put in place the executive that will discuss those issues, and collectively they can then come up with the solutions which will benefit them.
Yeah. What would you say are perhaps the top two issues, the top two major concerns that the Commission for Strata Corporations has vis-a-vis strata properties?
At present, you will find that less than 20% of the strata corporations, there are approximately 1,770, I believe, 1,702 strata corporations in Jamaica at present, 85% of which is in Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Catherine.
Okay.
You'll find that they are not filing annual returns. Only average 20% per year will file their annual returns. The annual returns provide the Commission with information on how the strata corporations are being run and gives us the kind of knowledge that will allow us to intervene in situations or to carry out audits of those strata corporations where necessary. So without those annual return filings, we are basically left in the dark as to what is happening. Right? We provide
high level of non-compliance.
High level of non-compliance. And within the 20 or so percent that do file, 40% of those are compliant in terms of what is required for filing. And so we undertake training exercises to highlight how you do your filing, what it is that you file, and that it goes on throughout the year at the Commission.
So the various executive groups can call the Commission to get information as to how they go about their filing?
They can. And we will offer direct assistance in telling them exactly what. We have an audit inspector who is quite adept at doing that.
Yes.
And she facilitates some of the training workshops that we have as well.
And this is totally an issue of moral suasion. There are no penalties that are applied.
There are no direct penalties
If people
as
don't.
yet.
Yeah. But that's being contemplated. You
It
want
is
them to
being
know.
contemplated. And not only that, but the Act provides for us to demand certain information. It is a requirement. It's not a if matter maybe that they file. The Act says you must file.
Uh-huh.
And if so, then the Commission can take them to this in the Strata Appeals Tribunal.
I see.
And the ruling of the tribunal is like the ruling of the court.
It's
It is a quasi-court in and of itself.
Good. So the second, or final few seconds, the second major issue you would identify would be what?
It would be how they apportion the maintenance charges to individual proprietors. Many of them have been doing it based upon square footage, based upon how many persons are in a unit,
Yes.
based upon the just flat rates.
Flat rates, that's right.
You know, but what the Act requires is that the contributions be apportioned according to the unit entitlement for each strata
Oh,
lot.
is that so?
Indeed.
So this flat fee that
Is
many
illegal.
of us who
And it-
have properties take for strata properties take for granted is not to be so assumed at all.
It should not. It's outside the realm of the Act and challengeable by anyone who is aggrieved by that. Because what will happen, some persons will be paying more than they ought to, and some will be paying
Pay
less.
less.
So the man who is aggrieved by paying more has the right to come to the Commission and say, look, I am paying too much because it is not being done based upon the unit entitlement. So it puts them at variance with the law.
So those persons can come to the commission.
Right.
Good. All right. So your public forum where people can get more information is on the 13th of April at Girl Guides.
At Girl Guides.
At what time?
It will be at 5 o'clock, is it?
At 5 o'clock on the 13th of April. So those who have concerns and issues can get their answers there on the 13th. Until next week, Ian Boyne wishing you a very pleasant day.